Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to express you the meaning of affix or affixes and their types. Beside that, we're going to see many examples for each type. At the beginning, it's good to define the meaning of affix. It is said to be, it is a set of letters generally added to either to the beginning or to the end of the root of the word, just to modify its meaning. These additions are called either the suffixes or the prefixes. I'll give you just like a simple example before going through the details. For instance, if we go to a word like act, and we look at this word, it has no additions. And if we look for this word in the dictionary, so we will find it as alone. This word is the root. Okay, now if I want to add something here before this root or something here by the end of this root, these are called the affixes. Now, what is added before the root is called the prefix. And what is added here in the end of the root is called the suffix. Now, these additions, what I mean by the prefixes, that are added at the beginning of this root will be called as the prefix. These will change the meaning. For example, if I look at the meaning of act, it means to do something. And if I add, for example, this prefix, something like re, and I say react, so the meaning will be changed. It means I need you to repeat this action or to repeat doing something. Okay, now if I add something to the end of this root, this will change the part of speech of this word. For example, the part of speech of the word act is a verb. So act is a verb. If I add the suffix shen, for example, and I will get action, okay, this suffix will change the word act from verb to be a noun. This is in brief the difference between prefix and suffix. Let's go back now to our file. So as I've told you before, the affix means one letter or groups of letters that are added either to the beginning or to the end of the word. As I've told you before, if these letters are added or are attached to the end of the word to change the grammatical function of this word or the part of speech of the word, this will be called the suffix. Here I've got you some examples. Actually, we have many suffixes regarding the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, and either the adverbs. So, for example, we have the most common noun suffixes in English. We have these ones. I've got you something like a table, and I've got the suffix and its meaning. Beside it, I've got you some examples. So, for example, I'll go through this one. For example, ism, ISM. Okay, it means belief. For example, if we say narcissism, okay, and if we go to ship, this suffix, it means position held, like if we say fellowship or ownership. Now, if we look at the root of these words, they could be either verbs or sometimes adjectives, and once we add these suffixes to the end of them, they will be derived as nouns. Similar to these examples regarding the verbs, so if I add, for example, ate to the word, it will become as a verb. If I have regular, or you know that regular is an adjective. So if I got ate to the end, so I will get a verb. It means to become. So I have regulate, for example. I have n as in enlighten or awaken, and so on. And each suffix has a different meaning. The adjectives as well have also some suffixes. Like if I have, for example, AL, like when I have regional or grammatical, and I have, for example, IVE, like when I have, for example, decisive or creative. Okay, I'll get you like a little note that is in American English, verbs end with IZE versus British English, in which the spell changes to ISE. So, for example, if I have finalize, as you see here, finalize, it is ended by Z. In both cases, actually, they are pronounced in the same way as Z. But the spelling will be changed or will be different from American to British. So I have finalize, it is written or it is spelled with the Z sound or the Z letter, whereas in British it is written with S letter. So I have finalize as well. Okay, it is pronounced the same, but the difference is in the spelling. Okay, now the second part of the affix is the prefix. As I've told you, it is the affix that is added to the beginning of the word or to the beginning of the root of the word to change its meaning. Actually, we have many prefixes in English. The most common ones are the following, are added here in this table. So we have a, for example, or an. It means without, like when I have atheist. Okay, we have some common prefixes like anti. Anti or ant, it means the opposing or the against of something, like when we say antibiotic. Okay, and we have many other ones like D, it means away or down, like when we have decent. Okay, and many other examples. I think many learners are familiar, or a huge number of learners are familiar with these prefixes. Okay, you can look at them by yourself. Okay, now we will go through the most important point that we have to classify these affixes. Actually, some learners have a mistake when they think about the affixes, whether we're talking about prefix or suffix. They think that they are just classified into suffixes and prefixes, and they don't think about what is beyond that. Actually, once we look at the affixes, we have to think about them in three types. We have something called derivational, inflectional, and homophony. Now, for the derivational affixes, actually, we mean by the suffix or the prefix that make a word a new category or meaning. What I mean by a category is a part of speech. Now, for the derivational affix, we are talking about the normal case. Like once we add shen, for example, to the root act, so we will get a noun instead of the verb. And once we add re to the word right, so we will get a different meaning from the original meaning. Now, this is a derivational. Once we are looking for the inflectional affix, we mean by the suffix or the prefix that don't make a new category, they don't make a new part of a speech for the word, but they are attached to certain categories. For example, they are added only to adjectives, or they are added only to nouns, and so on. I'll get you some like an example. For instance, for example, this one, est. Okay, now est is a suffix that is added to the adjective in the comparison case. So, for example, I'll say tall, taller, and the tallest. So I will say that this suffix can be added only to the adjectives. So this suffix or this affix will be said inflectional. Whereas in for the nouns, for example, I can't add est. Like, for example, I have cat. I can't say, this means in ungrammatical. I can't say catist. This is ungrammatical. So for the inflectional, what we mean by is that one suffix or one prefix is added only to a certain category. Now, the last type of the affixes, we have the homophony. It means one suffix could be used in different or with different categories. Actually, it is the opposite of inflectional. So, for example, I'll tell you like some examples here. For instance, we have this S, this suffix. This suffix could be added to nouns to get the plural meaning. So we have, for example, cat, cats, and boy, boys. And on the other hand, I can use this S in the third person singular or with third person pronouns with the simple present tense. So, for example, I can say she drinks tea. Okay, so for this S, the same S is added to a verb just to say that this tense is simple present, and it is added to a noun just to say that this is a plural. Actually, we have so many examples for the homophony affixes. Like we have, for example, the ed. This ed could be added either to verbs just to give the past tense. So, for example, I have look, looked. So this is the past tense. I got the past tense by adding ed to the end of this verb. On the other hand, I can add this ed to adjectives or to get an adjective, like we have interest, interested, interested. So this word becomes as an adjective because we add the ed. Other examples, we have, for example, the er suffix. If it is added to a noun, so it will become as a noun, like act, or for example, write, writer. And on the other hand, I can get the adjective for that. Ing as well. Ing could be added either to a verb to get the continuous tense, or to an adjective to get to a word to have an adjective, like when we have she is drinking. So I have got here the continuous tense, and we can say it is interesting, interesting. So the same suffix, I mean the ing, could be added to a word either to make it as a continuous tense verb or to make it as an adjective. So by the end, we can say that the affixes, or the suffix and the prefix, could be with three types. They could be derivational, inflectional, or homophony. That is the end. Thank you for listening.